To make any amount of reasonable money from a $47 course, you have to have large numbers of people taking you up on that offer. And my guest today has done just that. He built up a huge audience on Instagram and sells them a low ticket course amounting to $140,000 in sales in the past year. Stay tuned to hear how he did it. Hey everyone, welcome in. I'm Jacques Hopkins. I'm so glad that you are here. Today, I'm featuring Logan Grimé. He is in Los Angeles. He's a musician. He is a songwriter, and now he helps people to write amazing songs. He got started not that long ago. He's a fairly recent convert to the course creator world. And when I heard his story, like the brief version of his story, I was like, man, we got to feature this on the podcast. It's so cool because what he has accomplished so far is really interesting, but he's got I feel like it's just like a drop in the bucket of what he's going to do as well. So I feel like this is kind of like an on the way story to an extent, but I think there's a lot of value in what he has accomplished as well. You'll hear in this conversation that Logan built up an audience, right? He built up an audience on Instagram, teaching people about songwriting, writing really memorable songs, and he struggled a bit. He struggled with what offer to put in front of those people that would work. His first offers didn't do very well, but he came across an offer that actually worked really well, and he's going all in on that. But you'll hear that there's other directions we can take it. In full transparency, he's one of our newest members into my next level coaching program, which is our program for existing course creators that are making some money, but are trying to figure out where to go next. What should I work on in my business? Just because he's a fairly new course creator doesn't mean he doesn't have huge insights. I love the way he thinks about things. And you're going to hear some of that in this conversation. And I think you're going to come out of this with some pretty big takeaways as well. So I'm excited for you to hear this. I'm excited for Logan and what's next for him as well. So without further ado, here's that full conversation between myself and Logan Grimé. Hey, Logan, welcome to the Online Course Show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, man. So big one for you off the bat. Tell me how you got into online courses.
Online courses. Well, I'm a online course lover, first and foremost. You know, I've taken a lot of online courses, mostly related to music production, and I just love learning in general. And so I am somebody that, I used to teach people stuff at the Apple Store when I worked there back in 2006 or 7 or so. And so I've always loved just showing people things, and I've always been sort of the individual to help family members and friends with technical things. And so I've just been that guy because I've just been doing that for a long time. And so, I more so taken courses that I've paid for through Masterclass or wherever it might be over the last handful of years, just sort of because I always love learning things and applying them, and then also not applying them. I think if you take a course and you can take one little bit away from it that you could actually implement in your life, then it's worth it to do it. And sometimes that can be a lot of searching within the thing, or just sometimes you don't even realize what that is. Some courses, like there's this one from Chris Voss, who is the negotiations guy that was on Masterclass, and that one course in his teaching me how to communicate with people in a different way, completely changed my life just from taking one course, of just understanding a perspective shift. So I'm always interested in hearing perspectives from different individuals that have learned to do things that are interesting to me. And so I feel like when I'm reading books, I am taking a course as well, but I just love taking them. And so creating them is something that was a natural progression for me to do, especially when I started building a social media audience, because it's cool to be able to, it's very scalable, obviously, within being able to take your knowledge and give it to many people. So it's fun. And I'm still learning a bunch about that, but I love taking them. And so I love creating them.
So look, you mentioned this course you took with the big perspective shift. You said it changed your life. Can you share a little bit about that? What was the perspective shift?
Yeah, well, in that course, it's a matter of how you are, how communication works between humans, and how that the big takeaway from that course is allowing others to know that you are listening to them and how to let them know that you're listening to them and how that builds rapport with people. And so, basically what I would, so there's people may have heard of these concepts, but like through like mirroring and reflecting back to people what they're saying, it's quite mind blowing if you simply just, when you're communicating with somebody, you simply repeat back to them what they have just said, acknowledging what they have just said. And this is so funny because this is built into ChatGPT as just the way that it communicates generally. It just always does that. It sounds like you, it feels like you. It's not definitively saying something. It's basically allowing you to correct what you've just said, but it is acknowledging that you just said something. And most people are just not, a lot of people don't feel that anybody's listening to what they're saying. And so by simply doing that, like sitting in an Uber and just talking and practicing that and just having an interaction with somebody that's, let's say, driving you around and letting them know that they are being heard and reflecting that back to them will build an immediate rapport that's like absolutely crazy. And it's just being a little bit more active. As Chris Voss says, it's called tactical empathy is what he calls it. But it's really just allowing people to know, like, letting people know that you are listening to them. And that was like that takeaway from that was something that I started to go and just implement that in every relationship that I had. And it was very transformative. And I built new relationships out of that. And I still do. It's just an easy way. It's a perspective shift that's immensely helpful in relationships.
So I just Googled Chris Voss masterclass. And so I'm on the page right now. It says Chris Voss teaches the art of negotiation. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is not even just negotiation, just in everyday human relationships, you learn just how important truly listening and understanding the other person is. And one of the ways you can do that is actually kind of repeating back what they say in their own words. And that really shows good understanding.
Yeah, that in combination with asking questions, not why questions, I like getting asked a why question because it's very, it's will force you to really like question or think about your entire reason for doing everything. So he talks about not asking why questions, but just asking questions. How does this work? What's the, when did this happen? It's actually great interview skills. It's a great interview skill. I think this relates exactly back to what it means to even have a business or be a communicator, is that you are giving information to, let's say, an earlier version of yourself, right? And so your entire key is to figure out how to communicate that back to the earlier version of you. And if you knew the information when you were earlier, then you would have done it. But that's what we're doing, is we're communicating value or understanding back to an earlier version of us. And so it's all a matter of how you frame it while you still know, you know a bunch more, but you have to communicate it back to somebody that doesn't have all that information. That's like the key to the entire thing, to me. And so with using these, and it sounds weird to call them techniques, but like most people are not working on their ability to communicate with other people. And so I think by simply being more active and more engaged in what other people are saying, it's honestly helps me with all of my social media content and everything. I mean, you can really sort of see when you start to talk to someone and you say, you're going directly to the source. And most people they're just not aware of the ability to be direct with someone and speak directly to the right person. And so the techniques with Chris Voss are really useful in just remembering that it's another individual. It's not you, but you can speak to this individual in a way that is satisfying to you. So it's like when like if I'm talking to my wife or something and she uses these techniques, if we're in a conversation trying to figure something out, I'm like, please do that, because it allows us to actually just like feel like that we're heard and seen while we're talking. And so it's pretty crazy. And like the Chris Voss masterclass, I talked with somebody from masterclass because I took I think like 55 masterclasses, and they reached out to me through a friend that worked there, and they were like, hey, we want to talk to you and ask you about your perspective on this. And they were telling me that the Chris Voss masterclass is the most popular one that they have, actually. And which I found really interesting and really cool too, because it was the most useful one that I took from them.
Wow. All very fascinating. I was going to ask how now that you're a content creator, you're a course creator, but you're a content creator, like how you've been able to apply some of those to when we're talking into a camera, but we know other people are going to be watching it on the other end, but you kind of address that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the, I think as becoming, I've made videos for a really long time, but making content that's direct to people is something that I've been doing over the last couple of years and learning about how that works. And I think there's really something to be said for creating a space for you to be able to do that. I know that for me, it's a lot easier for me to create that messaging and speak directly to someone when it's just me and the camera, because it's almost like a more of a relationship with me and myself of communicating certain ideas, again, back to an earlier version of myself and playing with that. And like with anything, it's like with cameras and lighting and stuff, right? You go outside and the sun is always in the sky. The sun is always in the sky, and it's at different angles in the sky. It's doing different. It's over here. It's over here. The sun's not up. Whatever it is. And individuals that are tuned into taking photos or capturing video look at the directionality of the sun in a different way than other people. It's completely just a perspective shift. It's like, oh, we could shoot it from over here. We could shoot it from over here. It's just how you're seeing it. And so when I'm making content online, it's all a matter of, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I talk about is I'm pointing out things that people are not aware of, that you could be aware of this. You could be aware of this melody in this thing. You are just not. Everyone's hearing the same song. You're just not aware of this thing that you could be aware of. And when you're aware of it, you can implement the stuff into your work. It really just, it's sort of, and to me, my personality, I can be, there's a part of me that has fun with that, right? I like to do that. That's always been a little bit a part of me. And so when I create videos, I inject that into there. I inject that little, I understand this thing and you don't understand this thing into it. That's just sort of my style with it that I have fun with. And sometimes it seems like, oh, this is going to be nasty, or people are not going to they're going to get annoyed at me for doing this. And usually those videos just perform the best, because I think it's just so noisy with all the people making content. And so sometimes people just want to be told to wake up in order to pay attention when there's all this other stuff that's getting in their way.
As somebody who's such a lover of taking online courses and learning and improving, there's a growing trend where I would say like standalone courses are probably less and less popular, and it's more common to include community interaction along with the online course. Are those elements that you appreciate, or are you good with just taking courses, watching videos, and then you get the result?
Me personally, let me think about that. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Well, I would say this. I will say it depends on the type of thing that you're doing. And I'm at a stage right now where the courses that I am taking or the programs that I'm joining are a bit different than maybe the audience that I'm speaking to. And so for me, that can be having a community aspect of it can be immensely valuable. That's how I met you, actually, was through that. And that's how I've met a couple of other people that where I may not know an individual like this in my physical reality in my life or through my audience. And so by being in a group of people where they are on a similar path to you is insanely valuable. Now, I would say as far as with some of the stuff that I teach and show, it's more interesting for me to be the leader of the community. No, to be basically to create a community around that. That's more fun to me in that sense. I'm not a part of really any music creating communities myself. And I think I've honestly discovered that it's more interesting for me to curate that myself. And so I do value the community aspect, but I'm just not in that. I'm in a different phase right now of life. And so it's a different type of individual that I am interested in learning from. And many of the things that I've learned through music, as well as through creating content and through business building and stuff, is I haven't really learned any of that. I haven't learned much of it through people that I know. Actually, it's mostly been done virtually through books, podcasts, YouTube, a lot of trial and error, and is now becoming something that I'm learning, and courses and such. And it's, I'm figuring that out right now, how to do that, how to pull that off in a way to where it is the most valuable to others. I was just doing a call last night with a couple of folks, and they're talking about how I'm like, this is valuable to you guys. Like, yeah, this is awesome. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't know if I would do it, but I can help bring that to life. And so, yeah, just different mode that I'm in, and discovering the value of that.
So I started this conversation by asking you how you got into online courses, and you began that conversation by talking about how much you love to consume courses. So I want to get into next how you transition from being a consumer of courses to being like, I could probably teach an online course. My question to start that conversation would be, what came first? You putting out content on Instagram because you have nearly 200,000 followers at this point, or the idea that you wanted to make an online course yourself?
So I've been doing music production and video production since I was about 11. I'm 37 now, and so I've been doing both those things for a really long time. And I went to, I was playing in bands and recording. My dad was a songwriter and artist himself back in the 80s, and so we just had gear, in our garage that I learned to like record on and do all this stuff, and played in drums and bands. Went to college for audio engineering and, in music production, and just kept doing that. Thought I was going to wasn't sure if I was going to do that. Realized through that I preferred making the music and collaborating with others. Played in band, got signed and went and toured all around the country and did a bunch of stuff. And at the same time, I was doing video production for work. And so like freelance video production right out of college. So I've always done both of these things. I have certain relationships with people where they know me as video guy, video editor person, or shooter. And then I have people that know me as music guy, and always made movies. Again, when I was in college, I was working at the Apple store. I would sit and I would train people on how to use whatever Logic or iPhoto or whatever it was. And so I've always enjoyed that aspect of it. And I've sort of just, those things have slowly merged together over time. And so, yeah, with my band, we were playing for like 10 years together. And then in like somewhere in the pandemic, we decided just to like take a break and just sort of explore our own things. And I started making video. I didn't even know what TikTok was. It was actually TikTok that sort of taught me not how to make videos, because when I make videos on social media, they're not throwaway. They're just information focused and not production focused as much, which is something I'm unlearning right now. And so when I started making videos on TikTok and just trying it out, I'm like, I didn't even know what this thing was. And it was a really good training ground because you don't have a following of people that know who you are. And I think that's a humongous barrier to entry for a lot of people. It's because Instagram's been out for 14 years or whatever, and people think that the people that are following them are watching their every move, and that stops a lot of people from doing anything. On TikTok, it's really not creator focused, it's content focused. And so it's really just a matter of what you're providing people. And it's which is like a great thing about the platform and a terrible thing about the platform. It's a catch-22, but it's, by doing that and learning how to create content on TikTok that would resonate, I just tried a million things. And you can, my early videos are just all aimless all over the place. And then one day I said, here's this concept where it's something I don't even do, but it was a matter of using chord progressions and using auto tune so that you could sing melodies over certain chords that you would maybe not think about. It was an idea I literally had in the shower that I wrote down on Aqua Notes, which is waterproof paper that I use. I came up with this idea, and I made this video, and it did maybe 30,000 plays. And I was like, oh, they want to know what I know. That's what they want to know. They want to know what I know. And that's sort of like the thought process. They want to know what I know. I'm like, okay. And so I just started making videos talking about stuff that I knew, and then using my production ability and I trained myself to be comfortable on camera. I've always been filmed since I was a little kid. So I just was a little bit further ahead than other people with that, but still had to break through getting comfortable doing that. And then, learning, hearing concepts from like Gary Vee and certain individuals about like value giving is a very vague term. Like, what does that even mean? What is valuable? Especially with music people, they perceive the music that they are creating is the value that they are providing. So there's a weird blur of what that even means. And so when I saw that reaction to me teaching that stuff, I just started following that thread. And so that's when my TikTok audience started to grow. And then the inevitable thing was I should make a course because I can monetize this. And so I did that. That was before I even I was posting these videos to Instagram. So when I made this course, I had probably 5,000 followers on Instagram, which was a byproduct of my TikTok. But for like 10 years, I had under 900 followers on Instagram for about probably 12 years. And so I was just following the thread as far as what it was that I would speak about. And I am still following this thread as far as what it is that I'm speaking about that resonates with people. And then how to, again, what I was saying before about what I know versus what I'm sharing, and then finding that balance of turning that into a product or turning that into a service that I can give to other people to bring them even a little bit closer to where my understanding is, I guess. I don't know. This is stuff I'm still in the process of figuring this stuff out, because I really come from like a artist creator brain, and I know this is a long-winded answer, but this is sort of my process as far as how to create, how to put all these things together.
Yeah, so can we get a quick like time frame check real quick? Like how long ago are we talking about that you started the TikTok? You started putting content out there like that, and then when you built the small audience and decided, hey, I'm going to make an online course. What's the time frame of that?
So the time frame for that, I started posting on TikTok in early 2024, 2023. Yeah, I think it was like at the end of 2022 or something like that.
Roughly a year and a half ago, something like that.
Yeah, maybe 2 years ago. And I was not posting this stuff to Instagram because it was like, I'm like, oh, they don't want it. Like, it's not hitting the same way. I'm not even going to do it. And I was like, it's like, it was reminding me the feeling of putting out music and certain songs where they just aren't getting plays or whatever. But in this sense, there's an immediate feedback loop. And so I just wasn't even posting them to Instagram. Like, we're only doing TikTok. You're not going to get them. And then finally I said, okay, screw it. I'll do that. And so I started posting them in January of last year to Instagram. And then they started to go. And now my Instagram's a lot bigger than about twice as big as my TikTok. But yeah, and it's just a different. Here's the thing: is I built a course when I was building a TikTok audience, and that's a much harder thing to like bring that over again, because it's more about the content than it is about the individual with that. And so there's a lot of things where I build them either prematurely or there's this concept. I don't know if there's a name for it that I think is extremely powerful, and I tap into this every day. Not every day, most day, often. And it's that there's things that you can do in your past that you may put a lot of work into, and you may even perceive it as a failure at the time, where you put a bunch of work into something and then you're like, oh, it didn't work the way I thought it was going to. And then you move on to something else. But that work and that effort that you put into that thing may be literally the exact key in which you need maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now. You don't know what that is, but it's nothing is lost. It's just a matter of, I really subscribe to the idea of the momentum and excitement of, I'm going to build a course for this TikTok audience. Oh my God, I'm going to see the whole thing through. And then it's, I can't even get them over to it, but it becomes this thing that I can utilize in an audience that will eventually be built that I didn't realize I was going to build. It becomes this thing that you did in the past. And I think a thing I continue to learn is that I don't think anything is lost. I think all, limitations are often, I think people's perceived limitations are oftentimes their strength. And it's a really, again, perspective shift and being like, no, that's actually my strength, is that I don't come from this, and to utilize that for whatever it is that you're doing.
So I think a lot of people are going to be fascinated to hear this part of the story, because a lot of people are more toward the beginning stages. Maybe they've even started a TikTok or an Instagram and they've grown to 5,000 people, but they haven't put their course together, or they're struggling to get the audience that they've built over to purchase a course. So let's keep going in the story. How did the creation and launch of that first version of your course go?
So there's a concept And I will tell you again, my friend, this is something that is still in process, but I have learned a lot from somebody that's wanting to get going with this. And so there's a concept that I came up with in 2019, which was sort of my transition into building all this stuff, like, or learning about this or changing my direction. And it was a concept that I called the underlick. And the underlick is basically a melody that is informing sort of chord progression and is creating the baseline structure for a song to be written on. So it's like there's thousands of hit songs that do this, where it's basically there'll be a melody that starts off, and then the singer starts singing on top of the melody. And this was something that's funny because my dad used to do this in all of his tunes. He was very good at this, and he sort of taught it to me. Some people would call it a riff, but it's this concept is a really powerful tool for making your songs far stronger, as well as for making people remember just the whole production of them and for getting inspired. It has a lot of value to it. I named it this in 2019, but there's not a definitive name for this concept. And I know so because I'd start to make videos about this, and people would say, I would just sort of own it. I'd be like, it's an underlick. And then people would say, no, it's not. It's this other thing. No, it's not. It's this other thing. They couldn't decide on what this concept was. And so I made a course that was about how to make these. And that was what my first course was. It was first called the Golden Years Masterclass. And it was, that's what it was. And I put I made it awesome. Did like really high production value, and broke it down step by step. I did this whole thing. And at this point, I wasn't even collecting emails or doing any email marketing with it. I was sort of just figuring it out. And there were certain people that really wanted it, because they just were like, they were listening to what I was saying and they thought that I knew what I was talking about, which I do. And they came to it, and I was selling this on Stan Store on Instagram, and I think on TikTok. And it's a great course, but I think is what it was is that I realized with it that in the way that I was doing things, I'm like, oh, I got to talk about this thing all the time. Like, that's the only way that they're going to know about this, because I wasn't doing any email marketing. I didn't have Kajabi set up or any of these things, any sort of sequences or anything. And so I built this course, and in building it, I put a lot of energy into it, and it it's something that I realized. I was sort of like following certain methodologies that I saw on Instagram work. I knew that like you could sort of like, I wasn't doing YouTube. And so I was doing Instagram, and I was seeing that certain people were selling things, but they were selling cheaper things on Instagram. I was trying to figure out how to sort of like place this and make this concept clearly valuable to people, because the concept is really valuable, but even the way that I named it and the way that I was I'm like, how do you talk about something that somebody doesn't realize that they need? And that's something that's a tricky thing to do, where it's if it was just named something different, it'd probably do a lot better. And so I had this course, and for a while I'll just be real about what I did. It was because I learned through this. Okay, it started off as a $300 course, because I'm like, this is worth way more than that. This doesn't even exist. And so I started off as a $300 course, and then I was like, wait, maybe it should be like $97. And then I'm like, wait, maybe it sells better when it's discounted. Oh, wait, maybe it's basically what happened was I went down to zero. I took it all the way down until it went 300, 97, 33, 0. And then I just didn't let anybody have it, because I did that thing. I did that thing where you basically, if you go down, there's an end, which is 0, but upwards, you can go infinitely upwards. I didn't understand that concept at the time. And so I went to 0. And then I was like, no, then you can't even have it then, because just because the course went to 0 didn't mean that more people would take it. And that's a really weird concept, right? Because on YouTube, you can have literally the most valuable information that's ever existed if somebody just did it. But if they don't do it, then it doesn't matter. And so it's a weird thing that I learned about the perception of value. And again, still learning, everybody, but that was a hard lesson in that. So I stopped selling that thing entirely. And then in handful of months later, I stopped selling that thing entirely. And then my second child was being born, and I took a course from Graham Cochran. I learned about Graham Cochran through, which everybody should go check him out. Great content. And I took his Automatic Income Academy course. And I was going to build a new course. I'm like, I'll build a new course that's all about like, that's more built around a concept that maybe people are more like eager for, even though this other thing is super valuable. It doesn't matter if people don't realize it. And so I took his course, and in his course, what I realized, the big takeaway was, oh, if I already have a course. I could like just repackage this. It's like I could just repackage this thing that I already did using these new concepts and these new things. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I'll just do that. And so I started to do that, and started to repackage this course and add some more value. Let's do some bonuses. Let's do this. Let's add all these other concepts that I learned from it. Anybody listening to this, I really recommend going and reading. Just go and read his book that's called How to Get Paid for What You Know. I believe it's what it's called. Yes.
I got it right here, Logan. It's on my shelf behind me. Big fan of Graham Cochran. He's been on the podcast a couple of times. Yeah. How to Get Paid for What You Know. Awesome.
Yes.
Book.
That book basically is what his course is. It's just a more like straightforward thing. I recommend both. Awesome stuff. I've listened to him. Graham's amazing. And so I followed that, but I also wasn't following sort of the concept of the YouTube thing, which is so funny because I make videos and I'm still doing the Instagram thing. And so I did that. And then again, I started doing some email marketing stuff, and that course wasn't selling the way that I wanted it to. And I was just so frustrated over this that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make something that will specifically, if you just think about this, in talking about, not that this is the right way, this is just how my brain went. I'm like, if I'm on Instagram, it's hard to talk about a course and be giving value at the same time, or people are going to think that you're just like slanging your course at them all the time. It's just because it's invisible, right? It's not like I can't hold up a box that goes, check this thing out. And so in like literally a day, I had spent a month remaking the sales page for that first course. Okay. And then in literally a day, I was like, okay, fine. I was like, I don't want to make, because, I know a lot of people make lead magnets that are like PDFs or whatever. I'm like, well, this is music and we don't do PDFs. I'm not going to explain something in a PDF because that's lame. And that's not, I wouldn't want that because we're talking about music here. I don't like that. And so I said, screw it. Let's just make this thing. And so I went on Canva, and I can use Photoshop, but Canva is easier to just like do something easy like this. And I made this checklist right here. Okay. So this checklist, there's 27 concepts on it. And these are just basically musical concepts that I have basically named all of them. And there's things that when I listen to a song, I go through this mental checklist in my head. And so I just made a checklist. You click the concept and it links to a video of me explaining it. But I thought the clever thing with this is that I made it so that I could print it out on purpose. So this is a digital course. Okay. So it's on Kajabi. It's a course. Basically, it is a checklist, but it's on Kajabi. And so these concepts all link to a video of me explaining it. But I can hold the piece of paper up on camera and I can say, I just ran this song through my checklist and it scored this. Not that songs should have scores, because I don't, that's not how I hear music. It's just, it's a fun way to say, hey, this song does all these concepts. And so simply by doing that, the first video that I did where I went on camera and said, that this is how the video goes. It goes, hey, do you know this song? And it plays a clip from a song. And I go, I just ran it through my unforgettable songwriting checklist and it scored a 24 out of 27, which makes sense because the song has 1 billion streams. This is an interactive checklist. If you want to check it out, write the word check below, which has like a ManyChat, which is automation connected to it. And when I did that video got over 1 million plays of me just doing that. And so I'm like, whoa. This is crazy because I basically built, which again, still figuring this out, guys, but I built a lead magnet that was very intentional to be like a prop and basically a full concept that I could just put into a video very fast. And that video was about maybe 18 seconds long. And I've made that video like 50 times. And so it was, and so this product, which is called Vibe Check, it's the Unforgettable Songwriting Checklist. Is the first thing that I did that has actually worked well, and people actually buy that because it is amazing, and the concepts in it are absolute. Sometimes this is again goes back to the concept of communicating back to the earlier version of you. These concepts are super powerful, and I am continually learning how to give that transformation to people so they can actually, bring these things into their songwriting. Something I'm learning how to do that. And, but I think the takeaway for this was taking what you've done and just continually trying to find something that works, because the way that the internet works now is like people will let you know if what you're bringing to them is valuable. They'll let you know. Like they'll let you know. And this was the first thing that I did that sort of has worked. And this is how I mostly make money now, is through this checklist. So I know it's a long-winded answer, but that's where I'm at.
No, it's all good, man. Just keep rolling. So I'm a little confused at this last piece with the checklist. Awesome story. I love how you got to that point. But I'm confused if like that's the course you're selling or it's the lead magnet.
This is what I'm telling Jacques. It's confusing. No, it's so at this point in time, the way that this works is I have changed it a few times. I would do videos on Instagram where I would actually have a separate lead magnet that was it was a songwriter toolkit. It was a music theory course. It was a songwriter guide. It was these other things where it was another PDF, and it would basically, you would get that, and then you could see that you could buy this checklist from within that lead magnet, which had just like, had other tutorials and videos in it. And yeah, so I had basically, sometimes I'd make a video that say, hey, I have a songwriter guide if you want it. And then I do other videos that were maybe a bit misleading, but I would say, if you want to check this out, comment the word check below. Okay. So I'm not saying if you want my entire product, it's free. I was saying if you want to check it out. And so they'd go to a page, no opt-in, they would just reach a sales page. And some people would just buy it immediately there. And then other people would not be like, oh, it's not free. And so yes, because it basically is, that would happen. So now the way that it works is that people, if they comment check, I say you can try it out for free, and there's like 5 concepts off of it that they can try. And so inside of there's like 5 of these concepts they click in, and it's not only just the concept, I also basically have an expanded version of it where it's also previewing the entire course, like the bonuses of the course, and I got all this stuff in here too. And so I'm sort of bringing people in and I'm showing them how cool the rest of it will be. So it's kind of a combination lead magnet and product at this point in time. And
I got you. So basically, like part of it, you give away part of it for free.
Yeah.
And then you try to sell them on the whole thing because of how amazing the part of it was.
Mm-hmm.
What's the full price?
The price of this ranges between it's 47 is the main price of it.
Do you have anything today that's more expensive than that?
Do I have anything? Well,
the reason I asked, Logan, is because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've done like 6 figures in the past year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is that majority from a $47 product?
Yes.
That's incredible. I mean, the numbers there are insane. How many customers you've had to get to that level at a $47 product?
Yeah. It is cool, and I've had people come to me and say, hey, you should be charging a lot more for this. And I mean, honestly, dude, that's why I am working with you, is to figure this out, because I know the value that I can bring. I know the value of this. People actually do this stuff. It's absolutely ridiculously valuable. But the thing is, and that's something that I'm learning is like this. Yes, if somebody went through this checklist and they literally did all of the things in here, it would be their entire musical experience would absolutely flip on its head. And so what I'm focusing on more now is how to be more deliberate in that transformation and walk people through that. Again, this is the thing. I have another course that is much more this checklist isn't super handholdy. It's more so just like you click it and it's me talking about something. And it is literally a checklist. It's like an interactive checklist. And so my other product, right, is it's now called Underlick Academy. It is it actually is a walkthrough. It's actually, hey, we're going to do this and you're going to take this and we're going to step by step go through every single part of this. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out, is tying all these things together. And it's at the same time, the thing that people mostly ask me about is they want feedback on their music. That's what a lot of people really want. And so I do a really great job of, I can immediately hear how people's music can be stronger. And I can also walk people through these different aspects, and I can show them manually how to do them. I'm just, at this point, I'm building the ship as I'm moving forward on, or what, building the parachute as I'm going down. And my brain, it goes through I haven't worked with anybody before that has said, hey, you should do this, or like, hey, you're just not looking at it this way. Everything that I do is trial and error, and also taking a course. And then, when you take a course, you take a course or you take some training, it's like, it's not a one size fits all. And I think a lot of people want things to be that, and including myself, you want a step by step. This is how you get to X, right? This is how you get to this result, is if you literally do exactly these steps. And I just don't think that works for everybody, that it's a kind of a combination of all the different steps that you've learned by being like absorbing all of them and finding the path that works for the thing that you're doing. And that's not the fun answer, but I cannot, like, I'm telling you, I've gone through like an Alex Hormozy training and read his books multiple times. And I've gone through Graham stuff. And I think when you see the overlaps in, things that people are teaching you, you can when you find that common thread and then you actually take the action with it and you see how it works for you, that's how you actually learn. You don't learn from just taking information in. You learn from hearing something and saying, oh, that's interesting, let's try it. And then you can actually see what happens. And that's another thing that is, I think, a limitation of a lot of courses, is that can be a one directional signal where you don't actually have to do the work. And when you make, it's like this, when you make people do stuff, you will like not force them to change, but they're going to learn something by doing something. And it's a weird thing that I'm learning about, as far as when it's like, if someone has concert tickets and they pay for, and they say, hey, I can't go. You want these concert tickets? And you're like, sure, I'll take those. And then you can't go. You may just not go. And be like, hey, no big deal. And this is like when people pay money for things and then they have to do stuff, they will learn things regardless if they want to. They will learn things, or regardless if they're resistant towards that. And it's cool and it's powerful, but I think it's counterintuitive, because people just want tactics to get to the thing. And it's like, you got to do stuff. And you got to embrace failing. And that's how you're going to learn stuff, is by like doing it until it doesn't work and then keep going.
I think the one size fits all approach, to put a caveat on what you said, I would suggest it's very much niche dependent, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people to some desired outcome. You're trying to get people to, I guess, write and create killer songs. And you've got that dialed in your head, what that true outcome looks like. And then we also have to focus on starting positions as well. And it sounds like there's a pretty big variance in starting position for your audience. But you take something like my piano course, the one size fits all approach actually works really well for that, because we have a very clear picture of starting point and end point, and then they just kind of progress through it. But with my OCG business, that starting point is super fuzzy, kind of more so like yours. It's more fuzzy, and that's when we have to start injecting more helpful stuff, maybe some interaction, maybe some coaching, maybe a community, maybe additional training or bonus training that some people need that other people don't. So I agree with what you're saying to an extent, but it is very much niche dependent, because my Piano in 21 Days is the definition of a one size fits all step-by-step program. But I could see how yours isn't necessarily like that. But I really love what you've done with a quote unquote course, Because basically people get this one-page sheet. I know a lot of people are listening on audio, but you keep holding up a one-page sheet that you printed out that's got 27 items on it. And so if they're looking at the digital version, they can just click on one of the items to then watch a video of you explaining that concept, right? And the idea is that the more of these elements you include in your song, the better a song it's going to be, essentially, right?
Yeah, I use the term unforgettable. I use the term unforgettable very specifically. Again, the first course that I did was more like clear transformation. This one is more of a mental checklist because people were asking me like for feedback. I'm like, you can give yourself feedback. Not as clear of a transformation, obviously. But yeah, I what you're talking about with Piano in 21 Days, verse, and I think that's something I'm getting clear on. You know, I've done a couple polls with my audience on like a reel versus, I did a cool, whatchamacallit, not a poll, but I had people fill out a Google form, just learning about them and where they're at and stuff. And sometimes it's
Survey.
like, yeah, survey. Sorry. Sometimes I'm not realizing that the people that are watching where they're at, you know, and that's the thing with a lot of the concepts that I talk about. They are done in many hit songs, but they are very simple concepts to me in relationship to the way that music theory and music in general is taught. And I know that in Piano in 21 Days, you do a great job. And I learned this when I started to watch it, that you're like, oh, you're doing a similar thing to me, and you're focusing on people, what actually matters and has the highest impact to be able to focus on this. My thing is very similar in that way, that it's like people are going to steer you on all these different directions, but let's just hone in on this. The thing that can be tricky is that there are people that are some of the biggest artists in the world that they don't know any music theory. They know no musical things. They just get up and they just do what they do, and it's just magic. And there's no learning with that. They're just gifted in that way. And also when it comes to writing songs that are really strong, it's a really hard thing to quantify that. And because a lot of people quantify it with the number of like streams or something like that. And there's so many other factors that come into play. And so that's a thing that I've been searching for, is to figure out how to show transformation in a way that I feel really proud about. Because the fact of the matter is, people just are starting off, and some people are like, I want to write a song for the first time. And a lot of people are, I write songs and I want to make them stronger, but what does that outcome look like? And that's something I've sort of struggled with, and that I'm continually learning how to do that and guide people through that process. Because the thing that I truly want to do is transform the way, like, be the number one place to transform people's songwriting into things that are not only like they proud of and other people, but I want to be like, yes, this is awesome, and this worked in that way. And I know that the things that I show people are really helpful. I get people walk up to me if I walk outside. I live in LA. If I walk down the street, I will get people walk up to me all the time, and it's not necessarily even just like random people. It'll be like celebrities will walk up to me and say things to me on the street. I got reached out to from one of the biggest DJs in the world, David Guetta, reached out to me recently, and he was asking me about concepts that I show. And in fact, side note for everybody, this is just a great thing, is if you're like trying to get into the flow of just even making content or anything. The video that David Guetta reached out to me about was that first video that I posted on TikTok, right? From like 2 years ago. It was a video. I had to put it on Instagram, and I had to cut some information out of it to make it short enough to work on Instagram. And I reposted it a couple months ago. That's the video he reached out to me about. Okay. He said, hey, how did you do that thing? And I said, I have the whole video. Here it is. And I sent him just the original edit of it. And so just a reminder that, like, if you're tapping into the thing that is uniquely you and that you can give people, it's like, it's extremely powerful when you can figure that out. And that's just, I think I have a lot of conversations with friends about this, of finding what that uniqueness is, of the value that they can provide people. I don't know what we were talking about before, but I just got wrapped up in David Guetta.
You can just stop anytime and still tell really cool stories like that. That works for me.
When I make videos, I'm talking to the biggest music makers on the earth. is what I'm thinking, and I'm forgetting often that it's not that's listening to it. So this continually goes back down to that messaging. Still learning, and it just so happens to be that I talk in a way that can make it relatable to a lot of different audiences, and also when it comes to musical concepts, it's very interpretable. There's these are all words that I've made up the names for. Some of these are ChatGPT names. Some of them are things that mostly are things I've come up with on my own. But I will have people walk up to me on the street and say, "Hey," like one of them is called the tri-loop twist, which is really just is a melody that's an A-A-A-B melody over a changing chord progression. And so people say the terms to me on the street, just because I think when you name things, you can own concepts. That's what a lot of companies do, is they just create their own way of describing something, making it more digestible for people. And that to me is something I've always done and I have a lot of fun with, and it makes it can ruffle feathers, but that's a beautiful thing, because it allows you to communicate more easily to individuals. It can give them a tool to latch onto and understand a concept that, especially with music, there's a lot of concepts that are really complicated, and it's just a poor way of teaching. Again, I'll say with Piano in 21 Days, I haven't taken the entire thing, but from what I watched, I was like, okay, I see what you're doing here. I like this. This is how it should be taught. And it's the same way that I see just sort of making songs.
Well, the way that I teach piano is offensive to a lot of people. I mean, mostly like traditional piano teachers, because I teach it in a different way. But my audience is so much different than their audience. And I truly know who my audience is. And I give a lot of credit to that for doing boot camps where I worked with people live. But also many years ago, I exclusively sold my course on the phone. So I really got to know people. I did 500 sales calls. So I got to really understand where they were at, what they were trying to do, what their objections were. So I feel like I've got that pretty dialed in at this point. You have thrown in the caveat many times, like, I'm still learning. Like, cool, yes, but you've also had some fantastic results so far, and we're all still learning.
David Guetta's still learning on his yacht. He came in, he was asking, we're never stopping, baby. It's forever.
Yeah, but I'd love to share a couple of things with you, man. I think what you're selling is very inexpensive. You said that. It feels like maybe you're scared because of your original pricing experiment of going down. You started at $300, didn't go like you wanted it to go. You lowered it to $100. You kept lowering it all the way down to $0. You were going backwards.
Went backwards,
right?
baby.
I always tell people it's way easier to raise your price.
It's the worst.
Than to lower it, because people will see when you lower it, and it's a whole thing. But do you think there's some of that with the previous experience with pricing something at $300 to where now you're like, 47, let me stick there?
No, I think 47. Yeah, it's honestly, dude, it's because what is the reason for that? I think it's because I like sometimes straddle the line between what it is that I want to give people, and also just, this is my job doing this now. And so it's also like seeing what has worked and having that, and not breaking the system of it, right? That is functioning, even if it's not functioning at its full level that I want it to be at. And again, I've just started. I mean, for anyone listening to this, I'm just starting to work with Jacques. So maybe we'll do a return episode in the future and we can see what's happened since then. But it's really a matter of not, do I feel like the value of it? I just feel like what I've learned about course creation and transformation, I'm like, do I have the product that fully is that? And for me personally, I get freaked out as far as creating something that I don't want to have to do forever, that I don't like. And I know that what people really want is they want personal feedback from me. The hardest thing for me to scale, especially from a bunch of musicians that are not like, it's like this. You join in some mastermind group and you got to be making over 6 figures in order to be in the group. Well, built into that is the fact that you make money. Okay, that's a part of the rules. You get to come in because you are already making money, which creates a type of individual that has money to spend on that thing. It is built into it. I have people that will come to me and be like, that will go onto like my product page, and they will come back into a comment. This isn't all the time, but sometimes just slightly is annoying to me, where somebody will go and say, hey guys, he's trying to charge for the checklist, or like it costs $97 or $47 or whatever, as a way to be like, don't even go and look at it. And that's a certain type of mindset of a certain type of individual that I think it's like, sometimes I also feel like have I built trust with people? Do they trust me? And I have a lot of credentials as far as things I've accomplished in my own music career. I don't have any hit songs, but I have tens of millions of streams on songs. I've gotten signed. I've played on stages on festivals in front of thousands of people. I've had syncs in commercials for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've done that, but I've made a choice to not do music as my career in the traditional sense, honestly, because I love making music so much. So I didn't want it to be a job. I was like, I'd rather help people with stuff. And I think I have a unique ability to create content and be on camera and do this other stuff that a lot of people are not willing to do. I also understand that in order to like really get a transformation out of somebody, the type of work that's required to do that, and the hands-on nature of that, and so this is something that we're gonna, I'm sure, work on together, is figuring out that how I can pull that off in a way that is sustainable and feels really good to do that, and can give people the legitimate results, and at the same time finding the right type of individual to do that. Because it's like, yeah, I could sell a multi-$1,000 thing to somebody, but the people, it's like, who like, are my testimonials going to be all from these people that are like, like they're all like 80 years old or something? For my audience, a lot of people are on the younger side. They're wanting to be an artist and be like putting their music out and really like do that on a level. And it just so happens to be, I could be wrong on this, maybe I just don't know enough, do those things line up together, where someone's wanting to pay a higher ticket for something, and that they also happen to be someone that's this creative weirdo that wants to like to express themselves to the world. And this is the thing that I just don't know enough. Again, I don't have an answer to that that's like clear, but this is sort of how my brain goes with this. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm not like high ticket guy. Like some people are like, we got to be charging 50 grand for this, right? Like we got to go as high as possible. But right now your would be what's considered low ticket, right? So we don't have to go from low ticket all the way up to high ticket. I would like to see you ratchet it up, or maybe there's another offer. Maybe you stick with this thing that's working so well, and then tack on something that's higher priced, maybe a little higher touch to it, so that the people that are really serious about it and can afford it can take it to another level. You mentioned something I wanted to address in saying that you're not directly teaching people to make money, right? And that's not a requirement to charge higher prices. Now, it's easier to charge even higher prices when you do, because you can convey that direct ROI, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not teaching people to make money with piano in 21 days. The most popular plan is $800.
That's true. I would be curious of what the audience is in relationship to the people that are coming to get my checklist and the age range of them. And that implies that people have money to spend on something, or they're not doing it. This is the thing. Sure. Okay. So I know certain people where they would say, and people too, where it would be, you can make an ad, right? You can make an ad on Instagram and you could say, hey, do you have a bunch of vintage guitars? Do you make this much money? And do you do this? You're basically narrowing in on a very specific avatar of somebody that has the money to spend on the thing. And I'm not trying to argue like against my own success with doing a thing. I'm just like, this is why I need inputs to have alternate perspective on this, because there's billions of people in the world, right? There's a lot of people, and so there's individuals that want that transformation and want to invest in themselves, because honestly, when you do that, you get better results from doing that than just being a passive experiencer of things. Without a doubt, I do know that. I know that. That's why I pay money to individuals to get that transformation within myself. And so I think the thing that I'm figuring out is what that offer is. Is that an extension of what I already have? Is that a new thing? I can do a lot of stuff, and I honestly I just love creating. I happen to be really. It's not lucky. I just happen to be in a position where I'm very good at creating high-end video stuff. I'm comfortable talking on camera. I can explain things. I'm really critical about like the editing of things and making it very specific. And I'm just learning how to take all those things and combine them into something that can give that to people, and how to organize all that out and create that, because I that's something that I think just should exist in the world. And I'm excited. It's just, I think I'm in the middle of the process of sort of uncovering that, and I've happened to find things that have worked well, like a lot better than anything I had done before, and a lot better than a lot of people, which I'm like, it's awesome. I also, I want it to work at the highest level. I have very high levels of expectation of what I want to achieve with doing this, because my ultimate goal is to be a place that's like the best, transformation that people can find for writing songs, when people just send people to me because they see the results of it. And sometimes I go like, oh, but can I give those results? What does that look like, going back to that thing before? And so, yeah, just figuring it out. But I'm excited, anything's possible. I think, as Alex Hormozy says, I can't lose if I don't stop. I think some quote like that. And I really love that, where it's like, you just keep going and you keep saying, I'm going to, like, even yesterday we did a call, and I had like something that, this is a big thing. Having something in your mind that you think is going to work in a particular way. And then I think the best thing that one can do is like go and try that thing, and like go and fail on that thing as fast as you can, because the faster that you can fail, you can figure out what the next thing is. Most people are afraid of that, including me often, but like, so yesterday, I'll just give this as an example, because I think real world examples are helpful for listeners. If I was listening to this, which I do listen to this, but if like I was doing a song breakdown, okay, yesterday we were on a call, I was doing a song breakdown, and I was in my head, I was like, I got to do this fast. I got to cut this quick so people don't jump off the video and they're going to spend time with me through the whole thing. And then I was starting to film it. I was getting stressed out, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that then. And I watched a video of me breaking a song down where I was taking my time doing. I'm like, oh, I like this. This feels calm and relaxed. And I could just do that. Maybe I can just trust that people are going to spend time with me breaking the song down. And that led me down to saying, do I want to do song breakdowns? Like, is that what I want to do for, like, in 5 years from now, I want to be doing that? Is that what I want to be doing? Or do I want to be spending time with people or doing this other thing? And I think the faster that you can get in and try something and learn from it, the more you can get clear around what it is that you want to spend time doing. Because I think that's a lot of people find themselves in positions where they're doing work on something. They're like, they don't like doing it. And to me, that's a really important thing to just be clear about that within yourself, because you could do something that works, right? You could do something that works at a really high level and you just hate doing it. So what's the point? And so I'm just, always being like very delicate with that. I'm like, well, if I don't want to do it, then I'm not going to do it. And so trying to find the thing where the thing that you do is extremely valuable to other people, and it's really fun for you to do that as much as possible. There's a give and take with everything, but like trying to find where those line up is something that I know I'm personally very sensitive to that. And I know a lot of people that make a ton of money and they do not like what they do. And so you don't want to do that. You want to be doing something that's life-giving to you, to where you just want to do it, because then you're just connected in the best way possible. And that's, just another ramble that I think is something that's worth considering, because it doesn't matter how, if you make a ton of money and you're not stoked about it, then like, what's the point?
Yeah. And I love what you said about failing as fast as possible so that we can learn from it and apply it to the next thing. And that's, I mentioned you having that caveat a few times with like, I'm still figuring this out, but the stories that aren't as good to highlight on this podcast and to motivate people that are a few steps behind you are the ones that are like, oh, I got this idea for an online course. I launched it. It was, I made $1 million in the first day. It was, all sunshine and rainbows, right? Whereas, we got to dive in deep and highlight your story of, I tried this, it didn't work. Then I tried that, it didn't work. And then I tried this and it worked a little bit. But I had all these questions. Like, I didn't start an email list. I didn't have a lead magnet. I didn't know what kind of content I was putting out. I didn't know what kind of course I was putting out, but I tried this and I tried that, right? And there's a lot of that in your story. And I appreciate you going into all those details and being so honest and straightforward with us about it. And that you're also still figuring it out and you have all these, big plans and all that. And man, just congratulations on all the success you have had. It's amazing in a very short amount of time. And I'm excited to see where things could go for you as well.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I appreciate that and appreciate you acknowledging the wins. Something I'm practicing doing. That great book, recommend to everybody, called The Gap and the Gain.
That's what you're going to say. Amazing book, Gap and the Gain, for sure.
Yeah, amazing book. I highly recommend that. And Who Not How also, or Who, is that what it is? Whatever. Those two books from those books are absolutely amazing. Jacques is a new who for me. And the measuring back on the wins is practicing doing. That's great. Yeah, I'm really excited. I get impatient, but I'm excited to see the possibilities of where things are going. And so, yeah, I appreciate you existing, and I appreciate that you landed virtually in my life.
Amazing. Hopefully we can meet in person one day too. I think I'm going to be in LA in a few months, so hopefully we can make that happen. Logan, that's it, man. Appreciate you joining us and for sharing your story and your insights. I think people are going to get a lot of great value out of this.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's a wrap on that full conversation with Logan. It has been incredible what he's been able to do so far, but I'm excited to see where the story continues to go because I have a feeling what he's done is just a drop in the bucket compared to what he is going to do. To find the links and show notes from today's episode, you can head to oc.show/236. And to get my free training on starting and growing a successful online course business, head to oc.show/workshop. In that free workshop, I'll share with you the formula I've uncovered after 11 years of running my own successful course business, as well as 7 years of interviewing others on this podcast and working with other course creators like Logan. There's common threads among those that are successful with this stuff, and I share it all with you in that free workshop at oc.show/workshop. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to take action on what you've heard today. I'm rooting for you.